All right, so now we've got a collection of pictures and words and maybe some clippings from magazines or drawings that you've done. And you've got a notebook that you're going to use, and we're ready to go ahead and build the cover, design the cover. So to do this collage technique, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need some glue or some Mod Podge. Some of you might have this at your house. This is a kind of like a glue-like substance that you brush on that's specially used for making collage. But don't worry if you don't have this, because we can make something very similar. Okay, so I'm going to take a container that I have that has a lid, because I might not use all of this glue solution right now and I don't want it to dry out. So just an old jar or a little container. And then I'm going to take just some regular school glue. This one broke and I just kept some tape over it so it wouldn't dry out. And I'm going to squeeze about, maybe about 2 tablespoons of glue in there to start. That looks about right. It doesn't matter. And then this is a little thick, so I'm going to add half as much water. So if I put 2 tablespoons of glue and I want to use half as much water, how many tablespoons of water would I add? Right, just 1 tablespoon. So I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball that. You could measure it, but it doesn't need to be exact. All right, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush to mix it up. If you don't have a paintbrush at home, maybe you have a Q-tip that you could use, or you could just make a strip of cardboard to use as a brush. I'm going to mix the water in so that it's a little bit thinner than the glue would be by itself. And if I leave this for a while, like if I go away and do something else and come back, I'd have to stir it up again. So make sure it's like the consistency or the thickness is all about the same. Go around the corners. All right, that works. Now I'm going to do a little bit of planning. This should be fun, so it doesn't take a lot of planning. Whoops, put that up there. I'm going to take some of my bigger pieces that are going to go behind and just sort of see how I want them. This is a really beautiful tree trunk. I think I might want to kind of make the little baby birds near the top, and then maybe this word precious in between. I'm going to put it underneath, so it's just sort of popping out because they're sort of precious. And then I've got this little spot on the bottom. And I don't really have room for this whole word, so I might think about what's important. Do I want to have these words? Do I want to just have black? I think I'm just going to go for those words. So I'm going to tip that, fold that back like I showed you earlier in one of the earlier videos. I'm just going to rip along that fold line because I like the way that looks. I'll save this little black strip. All right, I like this. Okay, so that's going to be sort of my basic background. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down, and then I've got all these other words and some smaller pictures that I'll put over the top after. So starting from the top, I'm going to fold it down, and I'm going to paint this glue and water mixture all over the whole notebook. What I'd like you to see is that I'm spreading it out thin, and not just the book, but also the back of the paper. Now you don't have to be super neat, but you do have to try to get a little bit of this moist glue mixture everywhere on the paper, all the way to the corners. Okay, now I'm going to flip it over. And remember, I'm not too worried about the sides if they line up. I'll fix that later. All right, I'm going to press that down. Now I wanted this word to be underneath, so I'm just going to lift it up a little. Glue on the notebook. Glue on the paper. And then I'm going to press it down. Okay, I'm just going to kind of plan that a little bit. Now remember, this is going to dry clear, so don't worry if you see some white glue where you don't really want it, because we're going to actually be painting glue over everything. And just going to continue on with this process. Get my edges. Okay, flip it over before it dries. Press that down, smooth it out. And then my last little piece here on the bottom. Okay. Oh, I could have just used the back of that. I noticed the back is also a very neat picture. Okay. All right. Now, once I've got everything tacked down, you're going to start to see lots of little ridges. Don't worry too much about those, but you can sort of smooth them out with your finger, pull them out, roll it out, push it down a little bit. It's just because the paper's wet. And now, believe it or not, we're going to cover the entire surface with this same mixture. That's how we're going to get that sealed look, and also it's going to make it kind of shiny. So now I am going to cover the entire collage with a layer of the glue and water mixture, all the way from the top to the bottom. And especially at these points where the two pictures join each other, I'm going to make sure I get a good coat there, because that's going to keep them from separating when I'm using my notebook. Of course, you can always go back and add a little if that peels up, if that edge didn't have quite enough glue. You can even slide your paintbrush under the edge there and then smooth it out. So why don't you go ahead and finish this step. I'm going to turn off the video because this is a little boring to watch me do this. It's going to take me a little bit. And I'm just going to keep going, covering the entire cover with the mixture. And then I'm going to go ahead and let that dry a little bit before I add some other details. So go ahead and work on your cover, and we'll see you back here in just a little while. All right, welcome back to our science notebook cover collage. So by now my first layer is dry. You can see that it's hanging over a little bit, but we're not going to worry about that just now. And it's got a little bit of a shine to it. You can see how it catches the light. I'm not going to worry too much about these little wrinkles. I could have been smoothing them out while the glue dried, but I'm not going to get too worried about it. Now I can add some other elements if I like. You can leave it just like this, and this is really a great notebook, but I like to kind of use it as a chance for some expression. So here's my paintbrush. I had it in water so that the glue wouldn't harden the brush. And I'm going to come back to my glue and water mixture, and it's been a while, so I'm just going to give it a stir again to make sure that the glue and the water haven't separated. And now I'm going to plan out where I'd like some of these other elements. So I have them here on the side. I have my funny little Baby Yoda picture that I think I might put him up here. I think I might just kind of rip off the bottom and put him up here with the baby birds. Maybe I'll put him on the edge so he looks like he's coming off the side of the book. When I trim it later, he'll be coming off the side. And I have some headlines, some words that I like. So I'm just going to put these words some places where I want them. I have a little piece of a photograph of one of my kids here. This is my daughter Pulama drinking out of a teacup. I'm going to put her peeking in right off the side, right above the word precious, because I like that idea. So you can add some other things to your work. And go ahead and do the same process we did before. So anything that I'm adding, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cover it with the glue and water mixture all the way to the edge. I'm not worried about getting it on the back of the book because remember, I'm going to cover the whole thing anyway and it will dry clear. And then once I put it down, I'm going to use my brush to sort of smooth it out nice and flat and seal all of these edges. So any place where I have edges, I want to make sure they have a good layer of the glue water mixture so they don't peel up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of these new things, these new elements that I'm adding to the cover. It's kind of fun because you can be pretty sloppy. You don't want to leave a big, huge puddle. And if you get a big wrinkle, push it out with your brush. The small wrinkles, you can just let them be. Kind of push it to the outside. That helps with the wrinkles. Pushing to the outside. Okay, if I go back here, I can see where there's a couple wrinkles. I could push them out with my hand. I'm not so worried about getting a little glue on my hand. And I have this little cloud. I'm going to make the cloud coming out of the baby bird's mouth. I like to do some things that are sort of unexpected. And I'm going to be trimming that later, so I'm not worried that it's going off the edge. Better glue down Pulama here before I get too much further. It's going to kind of be peeking out from under the cloud. Go right over the top of everything I'm adding. It will dry clear. And my little Yoda. Okay, anything on the edge, I'm going to give a special coat of glue mixture because I want that to stay down. And now I'm going to go ahead and do one whole coat over the whole top of the notebook again to give it more shine and to hold the paper down. So I'm just going to go back with my brush. And I'm going to be generous, but not with puddles. Everything covered, but no puddles. And the puddles will make the paper more wrinkly. And give it a nice, and then if I find something that I've just added that's bubbling up a little, I can use this opportunity to push it down with my finger. Go back over those little baby birds. All right, I think I've got everything covered over again. I might need to touch up, so I'm going to put this brush back in the water so that the bristles of the brush don't get stiff with the glue, and I'm going to cover this glue mixture so it won't dry out. And we're going to come back to this in, I don't know, about a half an hour when it's dry. Then we're going to trim the extra, and then once the front is dry, guess what we'll be able to do? Try the back. You may decide you just want to do one side, but I'm going to go ahead and do both the sides. So let's come back together in our next video when we'll trim the edges and then start thinking about what's going to go inside this great book we have.